Welcome to the Rustic Garden Homestead. This video is all about putting your tomato beds to rest. It's October 25th. It was 37 degrees last night. You can see my tomatoes. They did really well this summer, but they've died off. They're beaten back. The frost is coming. It's time to clean them up and then prep the soil now, so 4 or 5 months, 6 months later, when I go to plant the tomatoes, the soil's revitalized. And we're going to do that in a couple of ways. Some of it you've already seen in my previous videos, but I am going to focus on tomatoes. We're also going to use fish heads, bananas, and eggs to create a composting hole right in between. So like say the tomatoes, well, you can see the remains of them, but right where, stake 1 is, stake 2, about a foot down, we're going to put in some fish heads, old bananas, expired eggs. That creates a compost hole that will break down over the next 4 to 6 months, feed the plants back, and that's going to go down deeply. You don't want that on the surface. I'll explain to you how to do that. A couple of things to start off with is diseases. I always get this question, my plant has a disease, my tomato plant, can I compost it? So there's 2 types of diseases. Fungal, which is on the outside of the plant, it's on the leaves. Fungal issues I don't worry about. I've never worried about them. I remove the plant, put it into my compost pile, break it down. Fungi survive on host plants. Spores float in the air, they land up in the soil, they're all over the place. So you're not going to really change whether or not you get a fungal disease by composting or not composting your tomato plants. Subscribe, follow me, I'll show you how to prevent fungus. The way that you do that is to really have a prevention plan, and you start spraying your antifungals 2 weeks early, before the problems typically arrive, but I have plenty of videos on that already, but I'll be doing it again in 2025. So for fungal issues, I don't worry about it. I compost the plants. If you get the rarer type of virus, something inside the plant, inside the stem, not a fungal issue, which is on the outside, I do recommend disposing your plants right away. And fungal issues, don't worry about. Viral issues, if you're sure that your plant has a virus, get rid of it, remove it, because they spread pretty quickly. Also with the soil, you don't have to change your soil. If your plants had a disease or a problem, you don't have to change your soil. That'd be crazy. It's way, way too expensive. And then finally, I actually, because I'm just putting tomato plants in here, I'm not putting in seeds typically, or I'm not doing anything like that. I just dig a hole, put in my transplant, let the tomato grow. I just cut the tomato down right at the stem. I leave the roots in there. And some people had a question, well, if I had root nematodes, isn't that a problem? It is a problem. You have to treat them differently. If I were to just pull this tomato plant out, I'm only getting a fraction of the roots anyway. So roots are still in there. So if you were worried about nematodes being on the roots and staying over the winter, it's going to happen anyway if it's present. So I like to just cut the tomato right at the ground, let the roots decay in the soil. It'll give back to the plants in the future. So let me clean this up first, and then we'll talk about prepping the beds for the winter and using the fish heads, bananas, and eggs. The bed is cleaned up, mostly get out the weeds. Just to show you what it looks like, just cut the tomato right here, leave the stem, the roots right there in the ground. It's good to go. Along this side, and this bed, by the way, if I didn't already say it, it's 4 feet by 8 feet, or 1.2 meters by 2.4 meters. So in the front, I plant 2 or 3 cherry tomatoes, and they grow up the cattle panel. And back here, 4 tomato plants, regular size. I also keep these T-posts in here year-round. I highly recommend buying them. Get the 8-foot T-post. They're going to cost you about $8. But even if you buy, an 8-foot wooden stake, that's still going to cost you anywhere from, if you're lucky, $3 to $5. They decay and break down in like 3 years, 4 years. These T-posts will last forever, and they can stay in the ground, so you're good to go. I would spend up and get these posts for your tomato plants. So in this 4-foot by 8-foot space, I'm only going to concentrate the resources on top of the soil. If you want to turn your soil, that's fine. You're not going to wreck it. It's just not necessary. Maybe in the beginning, the first year, first 2 years, if you have heavy clay soil, I'm going to show you the planting a compost hole over there. I'm going to show you what my soil looks like. Maybe the first 2 years or so, you turn the soil over, loosen it up a little bit. But I've been here 5 years. After that second year, I'm just putting the materials on the top. I'll show you how to do that. This top of the soil looks great. I mean, that's absolutely beautiful. And that's what you want. Tomatoes and most plants grow surface roots. They take a lot of the nutrients that way. They also grow roots that go deep down into the ground. You're only really thinking about the top 6 or 8 inches of the soil, 15 to 20 centimeters. That's what you always want to enrich. That's what you want to give back in the way of organic matter, fertilizer, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Now, that being said, if compost was so easy to make and we all had tons of it, I would just say put down, 6 inches of compost, 20 centimeters of compost, or 15 centimeters of compost, 6 to 8 inches, 15 centimeters, 20 centimeters, 6 to 8 inches of compost. That's all you need. You could save all your money with buying the organic fertilizers and all that kind of stuff, but we all don't get the opportunity or have the space to make a ton of compost. So I'm going to prep this as if we don't have compost. And just to be clear again, because I think I rambled a bit, if you have the compost, 4, 6, 8 inches of great compost right on top of the soil is all you really need to do. Let it sit there, then you put the leaves on it like I'm going to do at the end, the grass at the end, your bed's good to go. Over here, where I'm going to put in the fish heads, the bananas, and the eggshells, you can see how my soil is really clay down there. So that top portion looks good. That's because the microbes, the worms, they take whatever you put on the top, they pull it down. What's down in the bottom here is clay. It's still good soil. It's full of minerals. It has nutrients in there. The water-soluble forms of the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, they kind of go down and deeper into the soil, cling to the clay particles. Your plant roots go down deep too, so they send in deep roots and shallow roots. We don't have to worry so much about those deep roots. We're going to dig this hole a good 12 inches deep. What is that, 24, 30 centimeters deep, maybe a little bit more. You want to go down at least a foot, 30 centimeters, so the ground's a little bit warmer. Everything that you're putting in doesn't freeze through. Typically in most, US gardens, that'll work. If you're in a place where the ground freezes deeper, it's probably not going to make much difference. Go down a little bit deeper. But you want the warmth to be there so that microbes and worms get to it and break it down. They will spread that stuff all over the place. What's kind of cool is you're putting in fish heads, fish bones, old bananas, old eggs. The microbes and soil life break it down into a form of N, P, and K that your plant can use. You plant the seed. The seed then takes that N, P, and K, transforms that matter into the tomatoes, the tomato plants, that we grow, and the tomatoes that we eat. I think that's a really cool process. But the basic composting hole looks like this. We're going to make sure it's 12 inches deep, and it's going to go right in between where I put one plant over there, then one plant over here. And you can see the tomato will just be dropped right in there. In the video, I will link one of my basic planting hole videos. It shows you how do you set up the hole for transplants. Again, if you want to subscribe, I'll be doing videos on that again in 2025. So this is a good start. Before we put down the organic granular, the alfalfa, you've seen a video on that recently, and then the leaves, I want to get the I keep saying planting hole. I want to get the composting holes set up, 1, 2, 3 over there, get them filled, close them up, and then put everything on top. Filling the compost hole. Remember, we're 12 inches deep, 30 centimeters deep. You want to be deep enough so animals don't smell it and come and dig it up. Now, I freeze everything, so if I get expired eggs, if I have, fish that is filleted, actually I have a son who wants to be a chef, so it's great when he comes over. I take the remains of the fish, I freeze it. Bananas that get too brown, too soft, I freeze them. And I just do that over the summer. It gives me what I need to create these compost holes. And I've been doing this for several years and testing it out, and it works really well. I mean, it doesn't hurt. I think that it helps. If you watch any of my videos and you see how this bed does over the summer, part of it is due to these compost holes. You don't want to just put in like grass or leaves. That's not going to give you a big bang for the buck. Combination of eggs, whole eggs, egg shells, fish bones, and bananas really give a nice mix of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. All you want to do is drop in, we're going to just put the fish head down in there, 1 or 2 bananas, drop it in there. If you have the whole eggs, that's great. You do want to break those, make sure they break. An egg shell like this size takes forever to decay. So yes, this will give calcium back, but you want to really break it up. And the calcium is going to be supplied to the garden by doing this year after year. I mean, it takes a long time for this to get into a form the plants can use. That's why I'd like to pulverize it into a powder using a coffee grinder, but just put in a bunch of the egg shells. And this is just something that you do regularly, year after year, and that's going to help really give these plants what they need to grow. Deeper down in the hole, again, the microbes break this down, change it into a form of nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, other elements your plants need. The roots get down in there, the microbes and worms move stuff around, well, mostly the worms move stuff around with their castings, and the plants get everything they need. I'm going to throw this piece in there too. That's all you really need to do. If you wanted to throw in a handful of organic granular fertilizer, you could do that. But this is a way to save money and not have to buy the organic granular by really creating that composting hole at depth. It's going to feed this bed, it's going to feed the plants. You just can't really compost fish in any great way that it's not going to smell and be a mess. So I love the compost hole. Each hole is filled with the fish heads, the eggs, the banana, and again I have 4 tomato plants along this space, and I'm using 3 composting holes. Once you have everything in there, just go ahead, backfill, and cover up the holes. You're going to find you fluffed up the soil, so it's going to be a little bit higher. That's perfect. Again, you want to make sure it's deep enough so animals don't get to this. So once the holes are all filled, I'll come back and we'll put down the fertilizer and leaves and stuff on top of the surface. But I'm going to link the video that I just did that really explains that in depth, and I'm just going to do a quick fix right here. The key to any garden is wonderful soil with lots of organic matter. But you don't have to have it perfect year 1, year 2, year 3. Building good soil, building great soil, getting the organic matter in there is something that you do every year, and every year your soil gets a little bit better and better. If you have a couple inches of compost, go ahead and put that down. If you had 6 inches, 15 centimeters, certainly put that down. As soon as you can start composting and make your own compost, I really recommend doing that. The greatest expense for a garden, 1 is filling raised beds, 2 is buying all the different fertilizers you think you need. This is a organic granular fertilizer, which means it needs to be broken down over time by soil biology. Most of the ingredients for your dry organics are the same. I recommend buying what's on sale, buying whatever is cheap. This is a like 27-pound bag of plant tone. It's a 5-3-3 NP&K. Blood meal, bone meal, fish meal, all the same basic ingredients are in these dry organic fertilizers. This cost me under $5. I got it on sale in January. It's normally like 20 bucks. For the organic granular, if you're using it, I actually prefer using this. Like I take about a handful, dig the planting hole, put the organic granular in there, mix it through. That's the best way to do it. It works. But to put a bed to sleep, I just take some handfuls and scatter it down just like that, and that's it. Nothing fancy, and I would go all the way down. Organic granular can be expensive. You can also use alfalfa pellets, which is about 20 bucks for a 40-pound bag. These are alfalfa pellets. Now, a couple of things. I have not had animals come and eat this. Soon as you soak this with water, they break down into tiny flakes and they're left alone. Even when I've left full pellets out, nothing seems to be eating them. That's always a worry people have. People also worry that there's chemicals mixed in here that's used to kill weeds and that it will affect your garden. All I can say is I've been doing this for a decade. I've not had any issues. You can always look for organic varieties of alfalfa if you're concerned about that. This is a 40-pound bag, 20 bucks at Tractor Supply store. It is a 211 NP&K, probably a little bit less than that, but remember, compost is well below a 111 NP&K. We get a little bit too fixated on the ratios of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and it does matter, but in the big picture it doesn't. What matters most is getting NP&K into the soil, onto the surface, into that top, 6 inches or so, 15 centimeters, and just letting it build over time. Continuous supply of NP&K, and then getting the organic matter in here. That's what supports the microbes, worms. It holds moisture, helps the plants, and that's what's going to help you have a beautiful garden. So you don't have to put down the organic granular. If it's too expensive, skip it. Go right to the alfalfa. I like to put it down, a pretty heavy-handed amount, something like that, all the way down. 40-pound bag goes really does go a long way. Once this is in, I would soak it down, and then I'm going to put the leaves and grass over the top. And I would just do that all the way down the bed. Again, check the video out that I just did that's in the video description if you want more details. Now, you could just use alfalfa, you could use the organic granular, you could use both, you could add it in compost. There's just a million ways you can do it. But what we're doing is we're getting NP&K across the top of the bed. Over the next several months, while the beds are in slumber, that will break down. That will be available to the root systems. We've got the compost hole in there, breaking down fertilizer for the roots that go down deeper. And then we're going to put down grass and leaves. You could use straw, you could use hay. Any organic matter that's not decomposed yet, right on top, that will keep moisture in there. The microbes will love it. They will break this stuff down into the right form so the plants can use it. And that organic matter, the grass, the leaves, will also break down. It'll feed worms, and you're just building a nice soil in this 4 foot by 8 foot space, 1.2, 2.4 meters space over time. There's no rush. The bed's ready for the mulch, the grass, the leaves. Again, 2 inches are going to go down, 5 centimeters. That will be perfect for putting this bed to rest. You've also seen me put down some wood ash. You don't want to take big handfuls of wood ash and drop it on there. It's going to affect the pH, but a light scattering of your wood ash from your fire pit goes a long way, and it will provide nutrients to your garden. I like doing that right now, you know, on top of this. You could do it on top of the grass that you put down. You could take your wood ash and sprinkle it into your compost pile. Wood ash is a good source of nutrients for your garden. You just can't pile it in because it affects the pH. So you want it to be lightly scattered across, or you want it mixed into your compost that, you know, kind of breaking down over the years, and then you can, you know, return it to your garden. I want to stress just one more time, because people hear negative things about the wood ash. Don't pile it in. It's going to affect the pH. Just lightly scatter it across the soil. The tomato bed has been put to sleep. It's going to rest here for a good 4 or 5 months before I start planting in it. There are pine needles down there, just FYI. They're not going to significantly change the pH of your soil. People worry that they're acidic and it's going to lower your pH. That's not going to happen in any drastic way. There's also a lot of leaves in here. I'd like to have more grass mixed in, at least a 50-50 mix. Grass will provide more nitrogen, and that's the main nutrient that your plants need. So they just need a lot of nitrogen. So when I get some more grass, I will put a bag of green grass over this. Perfect combination. Don't need to worry about this anymore. Like I said, it's going to sleep for a good 4 or 5 months. Soil get revitalized. Things will break down. NP and K and other nutrients will be there for the tomatoes come 2025. Thanks so much for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com. Please check out my blog at therustedgardenblog.com. I'll be putting in articles regularly starting really in January. There are a couple there now. But I'm going to be writing new articles and new posts weekly in 2025. Again, thanks so much for watching. Oh, and real quick, those are blackberry plants in there. They're going to be removed, put into containers, and moved to other parts of my garden. Cheers. Have a great week.